This is the Stories from the Subconscious podcast, a podcast that dares to challenge belief systems through the simple practice of storytelling. Because the truth is, we only know what we know. And when we hear trustworthy and inspiring stories, it allows the inner mind to naturally begin to ask the question, could that be possible for me too? I'm your host, May Devi. Join me as we adopt expansive belief systems and celebrate the stories of those who dare to seek beyond what they once knew possible. Together, let's explore stories from the subconscious. Have you ever met someone who just absolutely radiated? Like you felt this magnetic pull because their energy was so incredible? Well, if you haven't, then wow, I've got good news for you because you are about to meet that person. Today's guest is Angela Gargano, and let me tell you just a little bit about this absolutely fabulous woman. You're not even ready. Now, let me just say, if you go out to her Instagram or if you were to Google her right now and see pictures from her on her time with American Ninja Warrior, or perhaps when she was on the cover of Oxygen magazine, you are going to see that this is a strong woman. Okay, there is absolutely no denying that she is a badass. Period. End of story. However, Angela will be the first to tell you that strong is not about the exterior. Strong is about feeling good. And I love that more than anything. More than anything in the world. Because what that tells me is that having a powerful mindset is the juice. So having this powerful mindset might just be Angela's biggest strength, even though she's like the pull-up queen. So in today's episode, Angela shares with us a little bit of her story, which involves being bullied as a kid and also tearing her ACL on national television. Can you even imagine? And we even talk about the very intimate way that Angela and I met for the first time here in Austin. It's a good story. She even shares with us the one question that she says for her has been an absolute game changer in her mindset storytelling game. You know, I'm obsessed with that nugget. But you're going to have to tune in to hear because, well, I can't give it all away. I mean, you got to tune in for something. This is some good stuff. Angela Gargano is both a tender and a fierce athlete and coach and international fitness model and public speaker and a soon to be published author. You better believe I love it. She has truly lived multiple lives in the athletic and the entrepreneurial space, defying odds and defying setbacks to become an authentic, and she truly is authentic, just you wait, and very relatable voice to the public eye. I love this woman so much, and I can't wait for you to love her just as much as I do. Please tune in to this episode today of Stories from the Subconscious podcast to hear how consistent routine isn't just for the gym anymore. Yay! Here is Angela Gargano. Woo!
Yay! Angela, thank you so much for being here on Stories from the Subconscious today. I am actually so absolutely pumped to have you here. I can't even say.
I'm so pumped to be here. I don't know if you want to share how we met, but I feel like it was already like a piece of this.
I was just thinking as I was getting ready, I'm like, we have to tell the story of how we met.
Absolutely.
And what's really sweet is, okay, so as backstory, before we even get into the good goods, we're going to talk a little bit about authentic relating, which is kind of like a sexy term that's thrown around a lot. But one of the common activities within the bucket of authentic relating is intimate eye gazing, which sounds just about as intimidating as it is. And you basically pair up with a stranger, and in silence, you stare into each other's eyes for like 2 to 5+ minutes, and you just literally see their soul. Period. And that is how Angela and I met.
And it was such a vulnerable place for me because I hadn't yet I moved to Austin now, but I hadn't moved to Austin yet, and I was feeling very lost and like I wasn't being seen, with along my journey. And it was crazy how she was a complete stranger, and they had us gaze into each other's eyes, and then after I think we had to talk. We had to talk, and the other person had to listen. And it was like the first time in a long time that I finally felt fully seen. And again,
Mm.
by somebody I literally did not know. And after that, I was like, no, I was like, I needed to meet you. Like, we met for a reason. I wound up moving like months later, but I just think that there's something so special about that. And I do think that we don't do that enough. We don't have that eye contact. And maybe if it's not for 3 minutes, but I feel like we don't like have eye contact. So now after that moment, pay very close attention to who's actually
Mm.
seeing me,
Oh,
in life. So I think that like is a very interesting moment.
totally. And maybe you can relate to this because you lived in New York City for a period of time, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Lives in New York City. No one looks at each other.
Exactly. That was like the final icing on the cake for me in leaving New York City. I'm like walking down the street. I'm like, everyone already has their headbuds in or the headphones. And like, so they're not listening to street signs. Or if someone like dropped their pen in the subway, I couldn't be like, hey, excuse me, you dropped your pen, because no one's going to hear me. And there's no eye contact. I was like, I'm literally in the city that never sleeps, surrounded by millions of people, and I feel completely alone and totally not seen. And I wasn't.
Literally, you were literally like exactly how I felt while I was there, while I was in New York City. I just felt completely not seen. Like you said, I was around people all the time. If you looked at my life from the outskirts and from Instagram, you're like, oh, she's crushing it. She's got all these friends, but I didn't feel the connection with any of those people. So I did feel
Mm.
very lost and very alone. What's interesting is I just had revisited New York City a couple of weeks
Oh,
ago
yeah.
for the first time since leaving, and I think I had this aura about me just from living in Austin now, and just from, again, kind of
Mm.
discovering, what energies I want to be around and who I am more and things like that. And I think that really gave off to a lot of random people because there was a lot more people like being like, oh, like, where are you from? Like, I felt like I had a lot more people being
Mm.
way more approachable to me because I was so approachable and like happy and just like, oh, I'm here, like type of thing. Whereas before I probably was head down, like everyone's a competition. I gotta do. So I found it really
Yeah.
interesting that, it's like you attract what you are.
Mm.
And I feel like it was so interesting to go there and kind of like come off in that different way, and then have that come right back to me.
Ooh. Okay, I love one thing that you just said there. You attract what you are.
Yes.
And I know for you that you have a morning routine that is very, very important for you. And
Yes.
I am going to jump to a conclusion that basically supports you being who you are, who you want to be at the very least. And I
Absolutely.
know I know that also clarity for you has come. Well, let me just stop there and ask, how has your morning routine supported your worlds and achieving your goals?
Absolutely. So I never really had a morning routine. It was always just kind of like work real hard all the time and like grind. And then I wound up tearing my ACL on American Ninja Warrior, which is a whole other story. So on national television, and at that time before I tore that, everything was going right for me. I had the
Mm.
gym, I had the boyfriend, I was getting in magazines, my life was so good. And then boom, tore my ACL. And once I didn't have those external things to identify who I was, once I didn't have I'm an athlete, I'm a
Mm.
business owner, I was very lost with who I was. And
Mm.
that's when I had to take a way deeper look into not only who I was right then, but like you said, who did I want to be? How did I want
Mm.
to feel? So it was a moment of like complete down. And I always tell people, like, people think that I came out of that really quickly, but I did not. Like, it was like months of me just being like down in the dumps, feeling sorry for myself, like really just like not wanting to live anymore, really getting to that low rock bottom point
Mm.
where I had to be like, you know what, maybe I can use this as an opportunity to dive a little deeper into who I actually am. And that's when I decided that I'm going to start doing some kind of routine. And it started very
Mm.
slowly. Like, what a lot of times people will see is me post on my Instagram. I post my routine. I call it
Yeah.
my non-negotiables, and I post that really
Yes, I
for
love it.
myself. Yeah, I post that for myself. It's so funny. Um, post it to be accountable to myself, but then if I noticed that people kept messaging me and be like, hey, that really inspired me. So that's another reason why
Mm.
I kept continue to post it. And it started as one thing, right? So it started as meditation. I'm like, I'm going to try meditating because I heard good things about it. And now I got all this extra
Yeah.
free time. Like, might as well try it. And I always thought that meditation was that you had to shut off your mind completely. And I thought that was
Hmm.
completely absurd. I'm like, how are we going to shut off our mind completely? What I learned later on, it's not about that. It's about taking that moment to yourself, being still. It's about recognizing your breath. It's about,
Mm.
noticing those thoughts, but then coming back to your breath. So I started doing Headspace, which is just a meditation app. You don't
Yeah.
have to do that, but that's what helped me like get into it.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I'm just gonna do that every single day. In the morning, like just to kind of get myself going. Cause again, I have this extra time now, like I might as well do it.
Mm.
And I didn't feel much for a while. And I still kind of thought like, oh, this is so like, woo woo and like whatever until I did it for a couple months and I did start to feel different. I did start to feel like,
Mm.
wow, I'm not as irritated as I would be normally that
Mm.
this situation happened. I just felt like a more calmness to me. So again, like any problems that were still there, but I just felt a more
Yeah.
more calmness about it because I was meditating. So it started with that, and then kind of like how if you've ever read Atomic Habits, I didn't read that book before this
Mm.
happened. I kind of started to habit stack. I was like, all right, cool. We got meditation. I'm like, all right, I want to start journaling, and I actually used to write a lot. And it's so funny behind me right now. I have a ton of my old journals. I used to write
Mm.
all the time when I was younger. I didn't know
Me
that was what I
too.
was doing. It's like all
Right.
on, it's so funny. I have like this little, how they used to give us like those agenda pads, like so that
Yes.
you can fill out like your homework and like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I have writings all on the back of those sheets. I didn't even realize that like I was
Wow.
basically journaling. It was like poetry and like just like weird things and drawings. Um, so I went back to journaling, and journaling had become very much okay, cool. What am I feeling in that moment? And it was a great place to have an unbiased, like, let me just pour it out on the paper. If I feel like, I want to say crazy things like, I'm not feeling like
Mhm.
I want to live and whatever. And that's because other people
Mm.
probably freak out if you said that. Let me get
Mm.
that out on paper just so it's out there and I can kind of look into myself a little bit more. So again, it started with meditation. Then I have it stacked onto the journaling. And then I started to try and figure out some of those other things that I think would just make me a better human being, which is like,
Mm.
okay, make my bed in the morning. Like, great win to start
Mm.
off your day, no matter how bad it is. At least you won by making your bed, making my
Mm.
bed, drinking the glasses of water because we need freaking water, right? Getting in some kind of movement, whether it be a walk or whether that be that I'm dancing in my kitchen. It doesn't matter what it is, and just getting outside. So those are what I started stacking on. But like I said, it took a lot of time for that to happen. And I had to figure out what worked for me. So what worked for me may not work for you, but what I notice is when I do those things, I am a much better human being for
Mm.
myself and for others. So yeah, this all started because I had to hit a rock bottom place to realize, wow, I wasn't focused on those things, and I was really relying on external things to make me
Mm.
happy and stuff like that. So once that's all gone, what do you have? So I think you always can come back to your habits. So that's a long
Mm.
spiel, but that's how it started.
Oof, there's a lot of good juice in there, and I just let me bring in a little like embarrassing levity in that I had this. I also was a big journaler. I just loved it for whatever reason. Like I had all the journals in the world, and they mainly are filled with absolute garbage of like, I love Patrick, and then the next day it's like, I love Matt. Patrick stinks, and I'm like, it's been maybe 24 hours.
I
I don't
have
know.
that too. Oh my god! When I read back, I was like, it was like I love him, I love him. Then like, oh, like 3 months later, I hate him. He's awful. I was like, oh my
I'm
god,
like,
Angela,
what happened?
what is going on?
Dramatic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but I did have this, like, as you were speaking, I had this flashback of, I definitely had an emo phase, and there was some poetry involved in that emo phase. And I was like, I'm going to share this one. And I had a really long hallway in my house, and I walked all the way down the hallway. At the end of the hallway was my dad sitting in his dad chair. And I go to him, like, Dad, can I read you this poem? And he's like, yeah, sure. And I don't know what it was, but like, I don't know, like the darkness and sad and like, what is life? I don't know. And I'm probably like 11. And then I finished reading the poem, and he's just like, that, oh, okay. Oh, that was it. Like,
Doesn't
he
know
didn't
what to
even know
say.
like what to do with that. And I think I just like about face and like went back to my room. but I had like a total flashback as you're like bringing up all your journals and poetry and like writing things in the. I'm like, oh
Yeah,
Lord.
I mean, it's so true. My mom later on, so I got like this art desk also, where like it was just a wooden desk I got from IKEA, and I would just like write with permanent marker all over it to make it look cool. But I had a lot of poetry on there, and I've written stuff like
Mm.
my insecurities are super real. I wrote that like on the side of my thing,
Oh.
and then literally like my mom still has that desk, and I think years later she was like, wait, like I was reading your desk the other day. She's like, were you like insecure or something? And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, Mom, are you serious? Like, did
Yeah,
you not
yeah, like how did you
realize?
miss that one? Dang.
How did you miss that I was literally just a hot freaking mess, like so insecure and like being made fun of and like all this stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting because like I feel like, maybe our parents, don't see it sometimes. Maybe they're scared to
Mm.
ask, or maybe they, I don't know, like what it could be. Nothing wrong that she did in any means, but it was so interesting that like I'm like, I thought it was super fucking clear that like I was having some issues.
Totally. Oh my gosh. Wouldn't it be so interesting to go back to like little Angela and be like, "Hey, listen, I have good news for you. Like everything is going to be perfect. Even the
It's gonna work out.
hardships, like it's all working out." Man, little Angela would be like, "Wait, we get to be on magazine covers? We're going on Ninja Warrior? Like what?"
I know.
Can
Forget
you
that person
imagine?
who called you a man. Like, go, you're gonna make it. Like, and they're gonna be still like, in town doing nothing.
Yeah.
Hi, this is May, and I'd like to take a quick moment to share something really special and important with you. When I lived in New York City, I arrived at a point where I could tell that there was something missing or something that just didn't feel in alignment, and I didn't quite know what it was. And it took me moving to Austin, Texas, and joining new and different communities and meeting different people to understand that that's actually exactly what it was. I hadn't been feeling like I belonged to something until I started to join these communities, which is why I'm now such a huge advocate for community because it was so and has been so life changing for me. So, this here right now is an invitation to all storytellers out there and to all those who are curious to explore their own storytelling capabilities to join my community out on Patreon. And it might just be easier than you think. Starting at just $5 a month, you can be part of a virtual and sometimes in person community that is aware of the stories that we tell ourselves and is courageous and brave enough to therefore ask the question, is that story true? So I'm sharing all this today because you don't need to move to a different state or a different place altogether in order to feel like you belong somewhere. This is an invitation for you to join a community where you do belong because I believe we are all storytellers. So, as you enjoy the rest of this episode, I invite you to go out to patreon.com/belief system and check out the beautiful community that we have blossoming out there. All right, that's it for me. Let's get back to this amazing episode. Thank you.
Anyways,
Right.
um, I know. So I would like for you to touch maybe a little bit upon. It sounds like you basically experienced some bullying growing up, and how that impacted maybe some of those insecurities that caused you to write on your desk that you thought was so obvious to your mom, and yet wasn't, because people like would make fun of your muscles, basically, right?
Yeah, so basically, I mean, I used to do my parents threw me into all sorts of sports, but then I became really attached to gymnastics. So I was a gymnast, and that was not a school sport. So I'm not like in, the soccer classes with everybody else or football, whatever. I'm literally like at an outdoor thing out of school, and I would go do gymnastics. And um, I definitely started developing muscles pretty early and like pretty toned arms and stuff like that. And that wasn't
Yeah.
cool. That wasn't even like seen. I mean, most of the
Mm,
times that the girls that were around were just very lean, like very skinny, because like no one's really doing that kind of thing yet, or their body's not developing in that way. So I think because it was so different, everyone started calling like, oh, she's got man arms, she's man. So I just started hiding because it became so
mm,
bad. It like I just remember so clearly this point. It's so funny. It's like, when you picture your old school, like I literally can go back right to that room. I know exactly how to get
mhm.
to that hallway where the lockers were, everything. And I look back and I remember I'm in a social studies class or watching a movie. I think we're watching like a Gladiator movie, something like that. And I just remember this kid like being like, "Oh, hey, that's Angela," like because it was one of the guys, like all
Mm.
muscular, and everyone's laughing, and I'm just sitting there, just like, "Oh
Mm.
my god!" And I remember my social studies teacher grabbing this kid out and being like, "Don't you ever like say that." And then I'm embarrassed because that happened. I made my mom pick me
Ugh.
up after, and then
Oh.
we sat outside with another teacher, and I'm crying, and my mom is just like, "Angela, like you're beautiful. Don't let them get to
Mm.
you." And I'm like, "With my arms, I look like a man, whatever." And the other teacher was like, "Angela, I would kill to have your arms. Like, I would love
Straight
to
up.
have your body." And I'm like, "No, you wouldn't. Like, you would not remember
Oh.
that." So I kept going to school over and over again with the hoodie on. And it was like 100-degree weather because, like, the school I was in, I mean, maybe your school is the same, but it just, they didn't have like really AC or anything.
Yeah,
So
it was
during the
built in like
summer,
1930. Yeah, there was like no AC units.
so you're like trying to learn, but you're dying. And then I have my sweatshirt on and I refuse to take it off because I'm like, if I just leave
Oh.
this on, I could hide my body. And yeah, it's definitely fascinating that now like my body is a lot of what I do. Like my body is, a piece of what I do. And I like sharing that story because whether it be like you're muscular, whether it be maybe you're curvy or like whatever, it's like learning how to really love your body and like all the different stages that it's at, and knowing that, just like I said before, like your identity is not an athlete, your identity is not this, your
Mm.
identity is not like your body, it doesn't define you. You're much more than that, no matter what. So
Right.
if you can love yourself at all the stages of that, again, whether you be, I'm muscular now and I'm curvy here, I'm lean here, if you can learn to love yourself in all the different states, that's the win right there.
Mm.
Because there's so much more than that. So yeah, definitely really interesting. It definitely played into so many insecurities just in general. I mean, there's still some times where I'm just
Mm.
like, I go to a store and I put on clothes and like I can't put my arm through it. And like it's like kind of like, oh God, like my friends are all putting all these clothes on. They look so girly and whatever. And I just feel so like whatever. So I look at myself in that
Mm.
way. But at least now I have the tools to kind of stop myself and be like, no, 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 Angela, like love yourself like right now and how you are. But
Mm.
I think really important to say that like it didn't fully go away. Like it's like I'm much better now, and like obviously this is what I do, but I still have those moments where like I kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, Angela, you got to like snap out of it.
Mm. Oh, that is very real. And what I can really appreciate is to hear you speak on that because you are so like in the limelight a lot. Like you have a big social media presence, like you've been on American Ninja Warrior, like you've been on TV, you've been on magazine covers. And so I think we are so conditioned to be like this person's in the public eye, they're perfect, everything is great. They're probably super rich and like their life is amazing. And what I really appreciate, and I'm not saying that none of that is true. Okay.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm not. I'm like agreeing. I'm agreeing. It's what so many people think. So many people think that.
But what I really appreciate you, and especially like on your Instagram, like that's really you. Like you are really super authentic, super genuine, and you're putting it out there. Also the hardships, like you keep it really real. And I appreciate that you have shifted from hiding the Mangela version of you. And then there's something that happened here in the middle that brought you to then shining your physical body and allowing that to be like in the limelight without fear and confidently and also super grounded. And there's like not ego here. And I'm curious how much of the mindset work is what got you there.
I think a huge piece was the mindset work for sure. I think so throughout college, when I got to college, I assumed since I became a college gymnast, I was going to now be with the people who were like me. I was like, yes, I'm going to be in
Yeah,
a
like
college gymnastics
finally.
team. Everyone's going to have
Yeah.
muscles like me. And then I get on there, like nobody looks like me. And I'm like, great. Okay. Like, I guess it's just like back to this again. So even through college, like I still like had that sense of like not feeling so secure about my
Mm.
body. It wasn't until after college when I actually started doing fitness competitions. And that a lot of my world had changed because I was trying to figure out something to do after college gymnastics. Ran into this woman, Dawn Butterfield, who's an older woman. And she does this awesome thing called Fitness America, where you like flip around on stage and then you walk out in your heels and you strut your body on stage. And
Yeah.
then you have like the interview. So it's basically like Miss America, but like with fitness. And I saw from her, this 40-year-old who just like spewed this confidence, had a body very
Mm.
similar to mine. And then she, got me involved in this group. It was called Kathy Savage Fitness. It was like a whole group thing of, people. It was a group who got together to do these fitness competitions as a team, basically.
Okay.
And I think what really got me much more confident in the body was the mindset work, and then a mixture of like, she made me throw on these stripper shoe heels and like walk in a bikini, seriously, in front of everybody. And after doing that so many times, you do start to feel a bit confident, right? Like you
Yeah.
wonder, like, you're like, oh my God, that sounds so silly. But it really did. Like I started to feel so much more like okay with myself because I was around that group of people. And then also around that group of people, we were all supporting each other. We were all trying to get the stronger body. We were all celebrating each other's bodies,
Mm.
no matter what stage they were in their fitness competition prep or like whatever. But I do think that the real confidence really came from like putting it out there like that. I know it sounds wild, but
Mm.
like putting my body out there like that. And just like having fun with it and realizing that like we can have fun with our body and like whatever.
Mm.
Like, so I think that a lot of the confidence came from, again, a mix of the mindset and a mix of being around those right people, and just like, again, just kind of like, I mean, you're forced to be in front of a mirror and be like, I look good, like basically. And
Mm.
after a while saying it over and over again, you finally start to actually feel it, which is pretty wild.
Mm. And you know what's so fun is like what I'm hearing is the full circle of the beginning of our conversation that you went back to New York City and you're like, I'm exuding this energy and people are attracted to me and I'm drawing people in like it's magnetic. And it sounds like that's what you found in this group by like putting on the stripper heels and getting out there in your bikini, like, okay, this is uncomfortable, but actually I look pretty fucking good. And then it all starts to like shake away a little bit and you really step into it, no pun intended.
No, you literally do. And again, I think having those coaches there just being like, yes, okay, cool, pose it like that. And then, at first you're like, this is so embarrassing. Like, what am I doing? And then all of a sudden everyone's really into it. And you're like, oh, actually. And again, like if I could get on stage in a pair of stripper shoes and walk out in a bikini in front of a bunch of judges who are literally judging me and be confident, like I can be confident in front of a bunch of random people that I don't know, and who cares about their opinion, you know what I mean?
Mm.
I have to be fine with myself. um and that's, again, the biggest thing, no matter what, on whatever part of your journey is, it is, you have to be okay with you, like despite
Mm.
all the other people, like, and what they're going to say and the noise that's going to be. If you're so confident in yourself, none of that is going to bother you.
That's 100% true. And I think bridging the gap is probably where people get stuck and they get lost in the how.
Hmm.
And so what I would love to ask is I heard you say like being around good people made such a big difference. And I know for you, you're like, hey, we only have one life to live. So I want to be surrounded by good people and good experiences, period, end of story. And what fed that for you was this one singular question that you said was a game changer for you. And the question is, what if everything goes right? What if it all goes right? Can
Yes.
you speak on that a little bit? Because I think that's like such a little pearl of wisdom.
Yeah, so interesting enough, I'm actually writing a book right now called "But What If It Goes Right." So yeah, eventually that's going to be coming out.
Heck
I don't know when.
yes!
It's not going to be in November, but so keep your eye out if you're listening to this. That
Oh,
book is coming out. Yeah,
heck
very
yes.
excited about it.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, I felt very passionate about that topic specifically. What if it goes right? Because I think what happens with a lot of us is, and it's our survival instincts. We're human beings and stuff like that. We always go to like, what if it goes wrong? And then what am I going to have to do to fix it, kind of thing. Like that's everything in life, right? You're never like, going to job interviews and like, oh God, I'm going to get it. Like a lot of times you're like, oh God, maybe they don't like me. Maybe I messed that one thing up. Like you're kind of always thinking about the negative. So what I had to sit down to ask myself, one of the days that, and was, what if it did go right? And then what does that even look like? Because a lot of times sitting there, we're being frustrated that life isn't going our way, or, people aren't treating us the way we want, whatever, all those types of things. But if it did go right and those people did treat you good, what would that feel like? What does that look like? And I think that we don't spend enough time writing that out and really understanding that. So understanding, what that is, obviously like picturing it, but then how does that feel? So what I did a lot now, what I do a lot now in my journal is my journal is all a lot of, it's literally I write, what if it goes right? And then I have all the things that I really
Mm,
think are going to go wrong. And I'm like, but what if it did go right? What does that look like for me? And even if it doesn't go right, just by writing that out over and over and over again, like you said, the how, this is how you start to shift your mindset. Cause just like I did in the mirror, all of a sudden be like, oh, like I do look kind of good. And I just did it like
yeah.
enough reps of it, you eventually start to believe it. And then all of a sudden, these things start
Mm,
happening that you never thought would happen because you shifted your mindset. And maybe it looks a little bit different. Maybe it's not exactly what you had written if everything went right, but it's definitely damn close and it's definitely
mm,
what it's supposed to be. So, um, sitting down and actually practicing putting that on paper. And the first time I ever experienced this wasn't like, what if it all goes right? It was always like after a meditation, I was reading this book and it said, picture what your perfect day is. And I remember just being
mm,
like, I don't know what the hell my perfect day was. I sat there and I
mm.
was like, I don't know. Like, and it was like, if nothing mattered, if no money mattered, if no opinions mattered, what would it look like for you? And really spending the time to dig deep into what that is each day, you'll start to add a little bit more. Like maybe it's first a scenario, then all of a sudden you start to like see it a little bit more, then you start to smell it and feel it and stuff like that.
Mm,
It takes a little bit of time, but if you want to know like how to actually practice like making these things a reality, that is it. And it's just going to take, just like I said with the meditation at the beginning, it's not going to be like overnight or 2 days or whatever. It's got to be a
mm,
consistent practice that you're going to be doing. And at the end of the day, again, you're going to be better for it. The people around you are going to be better for it. I think that we're
mm.
just, a lot of us just like neglect all that stuff. Um, we just all go negative. Everything's bad, 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 negative, whatever. What,
Yeah.
let's change that. Like you said, we can control our
Mm.
narrative. Let's change it. Like let's change whatever it is that is going wrong.
Right. Totally. Oh my gosh, I feel like that like opens up so many windows and doors of like things that I want to spin off on. And I just want to share, I just came back from Sedona doing Fit for Service with Aubrey Marcus, and he said in one of his like many speeches that he gave over the weekend, he's like, I believe in the possibility of possibilities.
Love that.
And I think the question of what if it all goes right is that question of believing in the possibility of possibilities. And even for you, like tearing your ACL twice on national television, I'm sure now you have the hindsight of how that was right for you at that time because it opened up other windows and doors, and all of that has been perfect. However, I'm sure you also could have chosen in that moment to be like, my life is fucking over. My career is absolutely dead. I guess I'll just do whatever. And that's the end. And that could have been your story, but you chose a different story, which I think
Yeah,
says a lot.
you get to choose. And I think that I grew up most of my life not thinking that I had a choice with anything,
Mm,
honestly. And once you realize that you literally have a choice, if you're not comfortable where you're living, leave. Like if
mm,
you don't like the people you're surrounded with, get new friends. Like you are in control. You do not have to stay. Like you are in control of what you want your story to be. And it's just like that quote. I think you saw me speak at an Empower event, but I love it.
yes, it was
That
so
quote,
good.
yeah, if you're not living your life by design, you are living it by default. That is
Ooh,
somebody else's version of
chills.
you. That's someone else's, that's what something, someone else's story. You get to live your life by the design that you want it. And there's been so many times, and someone told me that have lived multiple lives. I totally agree, and it's because
Mm,
I decided to choose at certain moments that I can change and I can do something else, where so many
mm,
people will stay in something they're not happy with, or what they don't want to do because they feel like they have to. And you don't have to do anything. And a
mm.
big piece of that
Oh,
happened to me, yeah, this summer, or last summer, whatever. I was living in Colorado, so yeah, I was in New York City, obviously. Then I sold all my shit and started traveling the world. Wound up in Colorado, whole thing, whatever. But I realized in Colorado that like I wasn't happy, but the person that I was staying with was like wanted me to stay there till like May.
mm,
And I remember coming to literally, I came to Austin in January, like
yes.
2020, whatever. And I was like, I was there, I was doing my stuff, and I'm like, you know what? Like, I don't need to stay there. Like, I'm
Mm,
like, I'm staying because somebody else wants me to stay, and that's what they want. I was like, I don't need to. I'm not happy there. Like, I'm not staying there till May. What am I doing? And
mm,
you know, having to put my, my feelings out there and tell this person that I'm like, listen, I'm not going to stay here because X, Y, and Z. It was hard, but it was another practice in that
Mhm.
toolkit of being like, you know what? Here's another moment where you're not feeling good, and you know what you want to do. What's holding you back? Like you can make the change. And he's like, oh no, you can't do that. You can't break leases. But I'm like, we're like, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Like, you can find somebody to take it over. Like what? Like there's other options. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just think, oh no, I gotta stay there. No, you don't. You don't have to stay there. So just
Mhm.
like, yeah, using that and putting it into practice. With that was just a simple, saying about where you're living, but that's in so many other factors of your life. Like as soon as you have that you need to get some bravery, and you just need to choose yourself and choose what you actually want your life to look like. Like you deep down, I think everybody knows what they want. Like what you want.
Mm.
Like you just have to like
Yeah.
do it.
Oh my god. It's like such a reclamation story that I hear from you. Like, people called you Mangela, and you're like, fuck that. I'm gonna claim that back. Like, yeah, I'm gonna be a gymnast. I'm gonna like do all this amazing shit, and I'm gonna be on the covers of magazines and write a book and like be a public speaker. Like, fuck yeah, all based on these bomb ass shoulders, dude. And then like reclaiming choices, like the simple phrase of we have the ability and the choice to choose is literally everything. Is literally everything. And I appreciate you so much for saying that and for embodying that, honestly, and for planting that seed into the mind of those who are listening. Because sometimes we need to know that we have options in order to see that we have options.
Absolutely. Sometimes you need that reminder because, like, just like I said, right? It showed up again. These things show up again in your life once you go through them. Like it showed up again with the moving situation. Like in my mind, I'm like, oh, I gotta stay here because. And then I was like, wait, hold on, Angela. No, you don't. You don't need to do that. Yeah, sometimes you need these reminders because again, maybe and once you do it once, I swear, once you do it once, it's like again, that's your tool you have. You're like, I got this. Like, and then you start to really own, like, start
Yeah.
to really get to own your life, which is so important. Not saying it's easy. Like, let's just be super clear on that. Like, it's not like woohoo, like whatever. It was still hard.
Right.
Like, I still felt super bad about having to leave and guilty, whatever. But I afterwards had realized again that I'd chosen myself. Just like, most people, they will also choose themselves as well. You have to realize that too. So if there's ever a situation where it's like, oh God, what if I X, Y, and Z at this point? They're going to choose themselves too, and it's important for you to choose yourself as well.
Mm. Yes, it is indeed important for us to choose ourselves because if we don't do it, who else is?
No one else
And
is, yeah.
one who's gonna do it? And also what I appreciate, I'm just fangirling on you, basically. This is what happens when you intimate eye gaze with someone for 5 minutes. That you're a fan for life. But you have so many online programs, but you have one in particular that's called Strong Feels Good, and I believe you have a podcast too that's called Strong Feels Good. And you teach women to ditch scales and to focus on feeling strong, focus on feeling empowered. And I can't help but wonder how much of physical practice do you believe begins in the mind?
I mean, so much in the mind. The whole thing is basically your mindset. When I feel like when it comes to working out, and yeah, I mean, so Strong Feels Good basically developed because I did the fitness competitions, but did start to turn into like still looks and like weight and stuff like that, and that got really tiring after a while, and then
Sure.
I started doing American Ninja Warrior, and what I had realized was that not only when I was doing a Ninja Warrior, it didn't really matter what I looked like. It was just like, can you do the damn obstacle? Like, you know what I mean? Like you're
Mm.
using your body for like, can you get past that? If not, like it doesn't
Yeah,
matter what the hell you look like. And
right.
I started to really focus on just getting stronger for that reason to like do that physical thing. And
Mm.
I realized that when I stopped focusing on what it looked like and all those different things like that, not only did I look good, but I felt even better. So
Mm.
I used to say strong looks good and feels even better, which turned into strong feels good. And then that's when I
Mm.
decided that for the people that I was working with, I decided, you know what? Like, I want them to feel the way I feel right now. And how to do that is like, we're not going to focus on the scale at all. And that's like a big change for a lot of people coming to a personal trainer. I'm like,
Big
if
change.
you're going to come to me, I am not freaking weighing you. Like, we're not weighing you. You might have that goal weight in your head, go have it. Like, we're not using it. Like, that's not how we're going to measure your progress here.
Mm.
And I think that some people like were very resistant to it, but others were like, thank God. They're like, we're tired of this. Like, they were like, we're so tired of like the programs were like, get the perfect bikini body. Like, I'm like, no, screw all that. We're going to get strong. We're going to learn some badass shit. Most of them, like, teaching pull-ups. I love teaching pull-ups because I feel like it's just it's a whole big thing, like metaphor for life and like whatever skill that you can work towards. But, as you start to do that, it's so cool when I like will start to train them, they'll all of a sudden start to say it. They'll be like, wow, strong really does feel good. And that's when I was like,
Mm.
got it,
Oh.
let's go. Like, that's when I'm like, yes, it does. It feels good. I feel like it's such a bigger picture thing. So yeah, I think that it was a big, again, this is that journey that I had gone through. It's again, focusing less on what your body looks like and more of how you're feeling. Again, that is with physical movement in general, right? If you're doing workouts that you legitimately hate, like you
Mm.
hate doing them and you hate showing up to them, then don't do them. That's not for you. There's going to be some other movement or something else that's going to make you feel damn good when you show up, that you feel, confident in, that you're excited to show up for. You know what I mean? If you hate running, like don't run then. Let's do something else.
Yeah.
Like it's like really focusing on that. And that again translates into your life in general, because if, a job doesn't feel good, you can leave. Again, you get to decide. So yeah, so I feel like with physical strength going mentally, it's a very much is a mental game at the end of the day.
Mm.
Most of it is all up here. It literally is. And that's the first step, is like obviously showing up. That's all here. Because a lot of people won't show up for a couple different reasons. One, they might be comparing themselves to somebody else. They might be comparing themselves to
Yeah.
their past self who used to be strong, and used to
Mm.
do this and used to do that. So their mindset is all in this like wonky place, instead of being like, I'm going to accept where I am right now and I'm just going to show up and just start getting myself moving. So I do feel like mindset is a huge factor when it comes to getting yourself back on the go with just movement again. But once you do start moving again, you will notice how you feel really good. And you're able to show up for yourself and others, and life feels a lot better just by, again, moving. And again, it should be something that you're excited to show up for.
Yeah. Oh, Angela, like hearing you share your story and discussing like reclaiming what once bullies, thought that they kind of had control over, and you taking your body back, taking your soul back, your heart and your mind, makes me feel so empowered, and knowing that if you can do it, I can do it too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I hope that that is a shared experience for those who are listening. And I want to take a moment to plug you and to have you share a bit of how people can work with you, because I know you've helped like already over 500 women like master the pull-up, which is like, oh my god, if we go back to like the high school visions for just a second, and we had to do physical fitness tests or whatever those were, and you would get
Yeah.
like,
The presidential, national.
yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes, like the pull up.
Wait, but real quick, let's just go into that real quick. Do you remember though, they would tell the women especially that they can just hang? They would kind of like already tell us that we couldn't do a pull up.
Wow.
Yeah, I like to always bring that in to my classes when I teach to women. I'm just like, remember when they basically told us that we couldn't do it? It all stemmed from there, and then it's like, watch her
Damn.
do it. Yeah.
Wow. Reclaiming that too. Add it to the list.
Mm-hmm.
Badass.
Mm-hmm. But yeah. So if you want to find me, the best place to do is Instagram is like really my biggest platform. So you can go to @Angela_Gargano, and then feel free to message me. I always tell people, like, if you are listening to this podcast and anything resonated with you, if you want to like share a story, like I love hearing that. Like that, I love listening to your stories. I love hearing about maybe how something might have clicked for you, like while you listen to this. So feel free to send me a message. And then the rest of it is, www.angela-gargano.com. And on there, all my programs are on there. If you want to book me for like speaking and events, I've been doing a lot of those lately. What's really funny is I've been speaking for a lot of men's groups lately.
Hell yeah. Comes
It's so
full
funny.
circle, baby.
I come in there and it's just like me and like 60 guys. And I'm just like, all right, let's go.
I love it. I fucking love it.
But yes, super willing to come in. I think that it's so interesting along the whole journey and all the different pathways that I've been. I feel like I'm now at a place where I feel like my job and my duty is to share my story. I don't feel like I need to get another award or like be in another TV show. It's so interesting. Like you get to this place where you're like, all right, I did all that. Like now it's time for me to like share and help. And I feel like that's definitely where I am right now in my life.
And you're doing such a beautiful job sharing authentically, genuinely, and from a really heart-centric place out on Instagram, which I always love your posts and all your stories. So I appreciate you. And thank you so much for this invitation to remember that that starting with the mind is always a good place to start. And that having a routine of any kind is going to help to step us into a world where we ask the question, what if it all goes right today?
What if it all goes right? 2023 book, go get it.
I love it. Thank you so much, Angela. I love you.
Of course. Yes. Thanks so much for having me. I'm sure I'll see you around.
Bye.
This has been another fabulous episode of the Stories from the Subconscious podcast. For more podcast goodies, hypnosis offerings, even a consciousness-expanding book club, and so much more, visit patreon.com/beliefsystem. And finally, I know the thing about stories is that the more that they are shared, the more powerful they become. So please share this episode or leave a review of what resonated with you most, because you never know who you may help in the process. Until next time, storytellers, stay curious.